What's up, folks? I want to talk about Divine Ire Ignite and the fact that it's still really good. Divine Ire has always been a skill that's been around in the Ignite world for a while now. Stormfire used to be the way to do it. You used to just wear the little ring and you got yourself Stormfire. Nowadays, with Elementals being what it is, you don't have to worry about that. You could just go straight into Elementalist, grab the awesome nodes, and then start stacking damage in different ways. For this one, I wanted to utilize this crazy alpha cell that I got with the socketed gems are 80% cost and reservation multiplier, but after building the whole build, I realized you could just do the same thing with Devouring Doubtum, so I want to go over it in case anyone's interested in doing Divine Ire Ignite. We'll just go in and talk about it. So, what is Divine Ire Ignite currently nowadays in terms of mapping? It's still pretty much the same. Trial Masters, things like that are all very doable. It's not actually that difficult to do. Your damage and your HP can be a little spiky because you do have to stand still for that moment to channel a skill, but overall with things like Cinder Swallow and some of the cluster jewels, you'll spike right back up when you attack because everything on the screen is going to die. You have amazing ignite proliferation, and you have overall just massive damage because in things like trials, you will basically go to 20 stacks instantaneously because there's so many mobs around you, and that 20 stack is going to be really powerful when the beam goes off to basically burn the entire ultimatum down, so you don't even have to worry about it. You can get hit by things like flaming skulls and the big apes pretty quickly, and they can sometimes chunk a little bit, but once you get deep enough into the build, you have enough HP. I got about 6,000 myself. You don't really have to worry about it because they're not going to one-shot you, and by the time that they're dead, you'll bounce right back up due to having Cinder Swallows and things like that active. Right there, I took a little bit big of a hit. So, let's get right into what it took to build this thing. So like I said, I started off with this alpha Zal as an idea of like, okay, well, how do I use socketed gems or 80% cost and reservation multiplier effectively in a build? And I figured, okay, well, what if we do, Malevolence, Herald of Purity, and Hatred, and those all scale physical, and then also add on cold, and also add on damage over time multiplier. Those three things, which are really powerful together. Where do I use them? Okay, Divine Ire is the adapt play because Divine Ire does give you the physical base that is converted to lightning, and then all your damage by being an elementalist does ignite, which means you don't have to worry about getting any kind of stormfire, and all your damage becomes base damage. Though, I will say, after having made the character, you could just swap this out for a Devouring Diadem, slap in an Enlighten 3, which I have in here anyway, and you could just do the build just like that. It's really not that necessary to have this. I kind of made it because I wanted it to maybe work out in my favor, but it didn't in the end game really affect it all that much, so the same build could be done with Devouring Datum, and just simply swap those two out. As far as I can tell, there's not too much difference there. You'll still have to do a little bit of your mana reservation stuff, but overall you'll be just fine. So what are our links? We have the old Divine Ire. Of course, Ignite Proliferation has to be connected to that because you want to kill everything very quickly. Infused Channeling because it is a channeling spell. Awakened Burning Damage would be nice. I just have normal burning damage. Deadly Elements and Swift Affliction. The usual candidates when it comes to Ignite builds. I think anyone who's done Ignite is going to know what those are, and it's not going to be that mesmerizing. Like I said, Malevolence, Herald of Purity, and Hatred are the auras we run because it does scale that fizz base of Divine Ire, gives us more damage from having Purity and Hatred. Purity gives us fizz, Hatred gives us cold, and then Malevolence for that sweet dot damage. In our boots, we got some Stormbrand, Flammability, Hex Touch, Combustion Action, so we are using Stormbrand as our curse on this character, and it gives us the combustion so that they have reduced resistances. Always really good. Because everything ignites, this will always take your good with Stormbrand. Just put it on bosses and they'll basically be dead. Flame Dash, Second Wind, Arcane Surge, Faster Casting, the usual movement spell setup that I always have on every build I do. Arcane Surge for just a little bit that cast speed, so you can get that 20 stack a little bit quicker, along with helping with your mana regeneration a bit, because we do have a little bit of a mana issue on this build. And then Flame Dash for the movement skill as usual. Then we do have a Golem setup in the Cane over here, and I have it as an Empower 3. Honestly, for this one, it doesn't need to be linked. You could empower only a couple of these, but I figured if I'm going to go on it, I might as well try to get at least a 5 link, empower some of the golems, give them a bit more extra from the supports, and it worked out pretty well. Now, speaking of the cane, this is actually really interesting because a lot of the cheap canes for this build are something that no other build could really utilize very easily. So I got a 85% fire damage over time multiplier with 197 lightning damage and cast speed. This thing is actually insane for me in terms of what it is, because it helps me in all the ways. Lightning damage scaling, fire damage over time multiplier, and then cast speed. This is like perfect. This thing cost literally 10C. Like, no one is using this thing, so if you are looking to make this build, it's really, really nice. It's really powerful. Unless something has changed with these are really good, and probably if Katarina stays the way that she is, these will be pretty early on available, so you can transfer into one of these. You can beat this with like a +2, 3, 4, 5 staff with like the perfect rolls and stuff like that, but honestly, for the price, there's no reason to. Just grab one of these bad boys and you'll be good to go. The chest, just the normal +1 active socketed gems chest with some life on it, life recovery rate, and then percent max life. Pretty good for what I needed to do. At the time, I was pretty much out of currency completely. Rolled this thing. I'm pretty happy with it. Not going to complain about it. Does what I needed to do, and I'm going to stick with that. Like I said, Alpha's Howl with the crazy thing. The way you get this is you get a Trial Master drop you a glimpse of chaos, I believe it's called. You vow it, and it has to become another helmet. This is what I got. You don't need this. Trust me. Just do Devouring Item. These things are, like, unnecessary. They don't really do much. Iron Mortal Chain, because we want to have the old Golem army. That way, if in trials and ultimatums and stuff like that, they end up dying, you'll always have enough backups to keep your immunities up, so you don't have to worry about being immune to stuff. Very, very good. Primordial Chain, later on in the league, much cheaper than it is in the beginning. I did have to anoint Lucidity because of the channeling cost. Because we have so much cast speed, it's actually kind of difficult when you reserve this much to keep your mana cost at a reasonable level. So in that sense, it might be actually way easier to do this as a Devouring Item build and not worry about the Alpha's Howl. So that might be just the main benefit of it overall. So if you are going this route, I would suggest just checking that out instead. That way you don't have to have -3 on everything, and you can actually anoint something that gives you damage. For the rings, we got life, regen, chaos, a little bit of resistances, stuff like that with minus mana cost. Same thing over here. Life, I needed a bit of dex because once again, we are running things like Swift Affliction, so we need to get that dex a little bit higher. You don't have to get it here. I'll show you on the tree how I ended up solving it eventually, but, you know, same thing. Life, resistances, minus mana cost, the good stuff as always. For the gloves, I got conversion gloves. I really don't know if these are even necessary. I would arguably say that fire damage over time multiplier gloves would be better, but they're carrying so much of my resistances, I decided to stick with them and not really worry about it. It's a toss-up, depending on how your gearing is going on what you want to do. Same thing with the belt. It's just life, percent life, and a resist. This is pretty much as bog standard of his belt as you can get. I really just didn't want to roll over it because it's tier 1 on a life percent, and I've already Fertile Catalyst it, so I just kind of have to make this one better somehow, I hope. Because it would be a really nice belt for a lot of my builds. I just got to fix it up real quick. Boots, very bog standard. Once again, life, resistances, movement speed, and then the regen per second if you've been hit recently. Because we do have 6,000 HP, it is actually really nice. We do get a lot of HP on our gear, so we get a lot of HP overall. Would highly recommend getting as much regen as possible. For Flask, we do run Citrus Swallow. That gives us a whole lot more of that life on kill, which is fantastic. Also gives us a lot of damage. It's actually a build we can run Sin's Rebirth on, which is pretty nice. It's rare that I get to use this Flask, but Unholy Might is fizz damage as extra. And since everything ignites, hey, you know what? This ignites for us as well. Along with a Adziri's Promise just for even more damage. Sweet. In terms of what we're doing on the tree, we got ourselves a careful planning here, and this is how I fixed my issue with dexterity. Turning all these nodes into dex nodes made it so that I had enough dex to not worry about it and run what I needed to. And then we are just doing your normal stuff. I didn't grab this because I don't want fire damage anywhere because it messes with EE. You know, you have to have cold, physical, lightning, no fire damage on your Divine Ire. Once again, stuff like this would give you fire damage, so you avoid it just to not break your elemental equilibrium. And then the other stuff is just normal primordial eminences of a Primal Eminence, and then the Anima Stone is somewhere on my tree. There it is, Anima Stone for the extra golem boys. Once again, just want to have as many golems up as possible because you are Elementalist, you are speccing into the Legion of Primordial and Elementor. Once again, when I level these, I go Shaper of Flames first, so we can get the Ignite right away, and then I go for the Golem Boys, and then finally I get Shaper of Winter as my last one, because defensively, it's the last thing I need. Once you start pushing into high-end content, that's when you want to get your defenses. Other than that, you don't have to really worry about it. Same leveling as always. Go through here, grab Elemental Overload, grab Elemental Equilibrium, go up, grab some fire damage here, grab fire damage there, grab your golem nodes, and bam, you're good to go. As for the cluster jewels, I have a very basic one, just trying to buff hatred here, as well as giving me that smoke cloud on kill. This could literally be anything, whatever you feel like getting in here. Once again, if you could get the display so you could blind yourself or blind enemies near you when you use a skill, sweet, get it, it's really good. But if not, don't worry about it. The other ones are Blowback, Burning Brights. This is probably the most powerful combo you can get for these. Burning Bright is just more multiplier with fire damage, as a Blowback is just faster ignites. Once again, really, really strong. Want to get those, great for the build. These are just basic rolled whatevers. I wish these were Fetals. I would have way more HP with a Fetal, but I just needed something in here, so I grabbed a Peak Vigor Max Life. Same thing over here, Peak Vigor Max Life. It's what I was rolling, it's what I landed on. I didn't have enough money to go for the Fetals. If you're going for this build long term, go for Fetals. It's much, much better. And then this is Astonishing Affliction, Cold Conduction. This is a combo that you really want, because with the fact that you are always going to be chilling, you're also going to always be shocking, so you get way more damage from this. So if you're doing this, this is 15% more damage, and you get always chilled, always shocked, always ignited on every enemy. Definitely get Cold Conduction on your build. As well as Astonishing Affliction, it's just more damage with longer hits and more, status effect elements to it. Overall, it's not a difficult build, it's not a complicated build, it's a very easy build that I think anyone can do. And if you're looking for a little bit of the old channeling action, you just want to beam around, do some cool stuff, especially with all the MTXs. The new one is very, very cool. Not this one, the Celestial one. But, it's a really fun build, and I do recommend checking it out if you're looking for a little bit different stuff from the current meta of Ignites, which they're powerful, don't get me wrong. But if you just want something different, by all means, do check this one out. I can recommend it. It's tanky, it's easy to build, it doesn't cost anything, and, well, it will cost something in week 1 of League, because Anima Stones are expensive as hell. Week 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. In the beginning, you don't even need to worry about it. You could just do this with, like, your basic golems and get yourself rolling, get yourself working on things, getting upgrades. It is what it is. If Fireburst survives the patch notes, then maybe go Fireburst instead. But this is just fine. I can recommend it. It works for me. I've killed Awakener. I've killed Maven. I've killed Trial Master on it. It's all good. No problems at all. Have a lovely one.